Greetings, everyone. I realize it's been a while since I've been on Make a Video for You, but I was not about to miss this. Was not about to miss Samhain. Oh, we love Samhain, don't we? Witches just love it. A lot of people love Halloween, but this is a very, very special time of the year for witches. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why that is. It's a little more complex than you think, maybe, when you're beginning out as a witch. I think all of us really love the idea of being a witch at Halloween. It's kind of really cool. We're the cool people in the room, right? But there's a lot more to it than most people think, and I wanted to talk to you about that a little bit today. First of all, for many of us, Samhain marks the witch's new year. Witch's New Year for many of us, particularly neo-pagans, you might call us, that follow the wheel of the year, this was the time for the ancient Celts when they marked the end of summer and the beginning of winter, the end of one time of the year to another time of the year. The Celts did not mark on a calendar Samhain. They did not mark on the calendar a particular date when summer turned into winter, when the light half of the year turned into the dark half of the year. But that doesn't mean they didn't experience it. They experienced it very much, and it meant a lot to them. And that is this ending of a cycle, the growth cycle, the time when their animals were still in pasture, and their crops were growing, etc. And then the dark half of the year when they would bring down their animals from the hills, and they would slaughter the ones that they were not going to overwinter, keep for the winter, and they would also pull the crops which were remaining in the fields, okay, if there were any, because at this time of the year most of the things were in the fields were dead. Remember, we already experienced in the Wheel of the Year two other harvests. We had the first harvest at Lammas at the beginning of August, and then we had the second harvest at Mabon at the equinox, and this is considered to be the third harvest, the very final harvest. Now, for us gardeners, those of us who garden, it's very evident our crops, even though I'm in Southern California and I will continue to get some growth out of some of my summer crops still, many of them are dying on the vine. My beans gave a little bit of another go at producing some beans, but my cucumbers are gone. My tomatoes are on their way out. I had a good tomato harvest this year, but it's on the way out. A lot of my things I'm clearing out because I want to put in some things for the winter, which that's unique to me here in Southern California. But the rest of the things are long gone, okay? And you know how I celebrate. I had a wonderful harvest this year. I harvested lots and lots of tomatoes, which I was afraid I wasn't going to have any. I harvested some peppers, not a lot, but I did get some peppers out of my garden, and I'm going to continue to keep the peppers in my garden through the winter, overwinter what I can, and hopefully I'll get some more growth in those in the spring. I harvested some cucumbers, pretty good harvest on the cucumbers, and the beans, but also some volunteers. I had some interesting volunteers this year. You know, I always embrace my volunteers. I always say I can't wait to see what kind of a volunteer I get this year. Well, this year I got a couple of surprises in my garden. Yes, you saw that right. The volunteers in our garden this year were kittens. A young adult cat, a tortie, appeared in our yard midsummer, I want to say, and she kind of drove our two cats that we have inside all the time, Fezziwig and Twitchit, that you've seen here before. Kind of drove them a bit crazy through the screens. And she was very, very curious about them, and also the fact that they were being fed right on the other side of those screens every day. And so she started coming every day, and she began to cry at the door, and she kind of attached herself to my husband, who took kindness on her as he does. And he started feeding her. Well, he fed her in the beginning outside, and then we realized I completely forgot that torties normally are 100% female. And the frequency for which she came to the door for food and the fact that she was always in our yard began to worry me, thinking, oh, we have to catch her. We have to catch her because we don't want kittens. We've had so many litters of kittens born in this backyard of ours and the front yard. And we just didn't want any kittens right now. So we thought our plan was to catch her and to have her spayed and released, which is pretty common practice here in California. Okay, well, she was tame, and we didn't want to put her in a trap. We do have a trap. I don't like to use them. So we started feeding her indoors. We opened the back door, and she would come in, and she would eat, and then she would leave. Well, the last couple of times she came in, she would be looking around, and you could tell she was casing the joint and said, this doesn't look like a bad place to live. But we didn't think a lot about it. We thought, well, we'll take her without alarming her, and we will have her spayed. Okay, well, the problem was she wasn't coming all the time, and she kind of disappeared for a while. So we thought, okay, maybe she went home. Maybe she went home, or somebody else took her in, or we wished not to be true, but we were worried that perhaps a coyote got her, which happens around here in the neighborhood very often. Well, she came back. And she would do that a few times, and my husband even said, she looks a little fat. I'm like, she's really liking to be fed. Well, she did look fatter. And I said, is she pregnant? He said, well, he didn't think she was pregnant. And I looked, and I thought, I don't really think she's pregnant. She's really not big enough to be pregnant. We were looking for other signs. We couldn't really see them. But we didn't know. We weren't that experienced, I suppose. And she was a young cat, so she didn't maybe show all the signs that an older cat might show as obviously. At any rate, she disappeared for a good while. And we thought that was the end of that, until one evening she came and she was crying at the door. So he thought, okay, we're going to have to catch her. We're going to have to catch her, and we're going to have to bring her in. Well, she came, and he opened the door to feed her. And behind her, we saw 1, 2, 3 kittens. And my husband said, come and see, 3 kittens. And I went to see, and I said, you don't have 3 kittens, because I saw kitten 4, kitten 5. She had 5. So we had 5 kittens in the yard with this mother. And we had to do something. We had to get them out of the yard. Oh my goodness, they were still very young, but they were, she had brought them over to the porch. They wouldn't come near us. We couldn't pick them up. So we started watching to see where they were coming from, and we noticed eventually that they were in our outdoor kitchen. There was a small hole in the back wall of the outdoor kitchen to access plumbing, and that had never been covered over, and they were in there. So we set out, and we spent, I think, 7 hours one day, the two of us, out in the yard, trying to be patient as we could, trying to get them to come out, and trying to catch them. And we did catch them It took us 7 hours, the two of us. Now, unfortunately, yes, I see you think, I believe you saw in the video there were three. Only three. Two of them were adopted relatively soon when they were old enough to be adopted. After they received their first shots, we put a notice out about them, and two of them were adopted. They went to a home together, so we were really happy that they were going to be together, which left three. Well, I don't think anybody's coming for these three. We decided to keep the mother. Her name is Minerva, and she has been spayed, which was good because we found when she was spayed she was in heat, so we could have had another litter. The three boys that are left are, there's not interest on them in them right now. We have a lot of kittens here where in my neighborhood where I live here in California. So big of a problem. Kittens are such a big problem here. So many kittens being abandoned by adult cats, mother cats, being found in all kinds of places. And so we just thought, okay, we'll just do what we can and we'll keep them. So now we are back up to 6 cats. I cannot say that Fezzy, Wig, and Twitch are thrilled with the idea, but one thing's for sure, Minerva and her 3 young ones, I think, are very, very happy to be here. This year, Buddha is celebrating this final harvest in a special way. Here he stands watch over the seed of our harvest, which is what we are actually harvesting from our garden this time of the year. I think I've shown you in the past videos, tomatoes, as they become over-ripened, they fall from the vine and smash onto the ground, causing the seeds to spill out. Those are the seeds for the new tomatoes that will grow in the garden next year. This is why we save our seeds, which are the most important part of our harvest. These are the intentions we hold for next year's harvest and for years to come. Here's a closer look at what's in my basket. These are the sunflower heads from the beautiful volunteer sunflowers you probably saw on past videos. Joe cut off all the dead heads which held the seeds for next year. Many were enjoyed by the birds and others fell onto the ground to await spring. Samhain marks the dark half of the year, which is seen as a time for rest and reflection. For us, this is a perfect time for divination for the year to come. I've shown you many kinds of divination. These are a few of my favorites for this time of the year. bonfires were very much a part of the lives of the ancient Celts, and so of course they were used in their celebrations. Fire was very central to their everyday lives, and they were often seen as a means of protection against evil spirits. The Druids and other spiritual leaders would often perform divination rituals using different methods like casting stones or reading animal entrails or interpreting the flames or the smoke to predict future events. I do have a slight interest in rune casting runes. Again, I don't have a lot of expertise on that. I have a lot of interest. We have some interest in our coven. We have coven. One of our coven mates has a ancestral background that is very connected to the Norse, to the Norse people, and so she's very interested in runes and trying to learn what she can about them and pass on that information to us. So we're really grateful. I know there's a channel here on YouTube called the Norse Witch, who is very knowledgeable, and she has, I think, a playlist, I'm not sure, but a series of videos that address just the idea of runes. I think it's very common for witches to own runes. For one thing, I think we're gifted them a lot from other friends, We're given them. I have several different kinds here. Some are hand painted on little flat stones here. The symbols painted. We have those. We had a friend who made some, who's a potter, and she actually made a set of runes for each of us, which are very lovely. On stones here, different colored stones. And also we have some other ones that are like on little, I think these are on little cubes of tiger's eye. So they're very readily available, and we have many of those. And these can be done, you can use these just by picking, and anytime you get runes, they do come with some kind of instructions, or you can find the instructions online, different places. Okay, so that's an opportunity if you really wanted to try something like that. I have something I use instead most often, pretty often, not all the time, but I use it pretty often, and that are witches' runes that I made. These are completely different from the runes that we would buy. These are different from those. These are ones that I made, and I use symbols that I found on them, and I have an explanation for what each symbol means to me. For instance, this is flight. This is flight because that's wings. Here I have, obviously, peace, right? Peace. So I just have them on rocks. I just painted some rocks, different things, and some of the symbols were mine and some were those. I found most of them online. And I do have a video I will link below to what I did, how I made them, what they mean, etc. I think I said ways you could use them, I'm not sure, but I like to use them in a way that you would expect. I like to use them in cooperation with a tarot deck, like maybe perhaps how one would use an oracle card with a tarot deck. Okay, so that is something that I find very satisfactory to do, and of course, here, let me show you what I mean. I like to use special decks at this time of the year when I do my tarot. One, I'm sure you know what it is already, and I will address that a little later in this video. But another one, this is rather new to me, the Jack-o'-lantern tarot, which I find just adorable. I really love it. I'm sure you could use it any time of the year, but I just tend to use it at this time of the year. Not sure why. But anyway, I love the imagery on them. The cards are really lovely. This is a Lo Scarabeo deck, so it's really lovely to handle. It's a good size. I don't know if they're shuffled or not. I just want to give you an idea. They're not edged, and I think I will take the time this season. So I want to show you how lovely they are to shuffle. I would not trim these in any way because they're the perfect size, and they're perfect size to handle, and they're a perfect size to shuffle, which is my jam. Okay, so let's say I'm going to lay out some cards. Let's say I'm going to just do a real simple reading for some divination. I want to see what's up for me. I have the Queen of Cups, the Knight of Swords, and I have the Ten of Wands. I want to see, tell me something about what these cards are representing to me, or what they have to do with my life over the next part of the, maybe just during the season. Maybe this could be a past coming up to the season of Samhain, where we are right now. Maybe this is Samhain itself, and maybe this is leading up to the entire season of Samhain, including up until Yule. Okay, so I would look at those and I would see how I might interpret that. Okay, and then I would use my witch's runes to perhaps clarify, as just like you might an oracle card. And I'm going to reach in here, and of course they're different sizes, but I don't use them often enough to memorize what's what. So I'm going to just find something that feels right to me. And here I have an eye. Here I have the eye. I'm going to put this here to help me, just to maybe help me understand. And of course I have my cards. I show you these cards in the video. And I look until I can find that symbol. And there we are. There's the symbol. And I turn it over and I see that is the eye. Good guess. It's a very spiritual rune, often associated with psychic abilities. Oh, that's very good news for me right now, because I'm trying to do some divination during Samhain. Okay. This will help me to see things according to my runes, see things as they truly are, witness the truth, give me some power, maybe some confidence in my intuition, perhaps. Okay. Also, it tells me to look around. The eye is it's the seeing eye. Look around for clues around you all the time. So perhaps when we get to the next part of the video, you will see what I'm talking about. But I'm going to remember this as we move on, because this is about looking for clues. Okay. So I'm just going to put that aside. Pick up the cards, because I want to talk to you about something else. Tasgeomancy is nothing more than the reading of tea leaves. And my husband and I, and many of our friends, family, are very avid tea drinkers. We love tea. So it was natural for us to do that. In the past, you have perhaps seen me speak of I started out with a very big witches' tea party that I held for some of my witchy friends several years ago. It was very elaborate. It was the kind of tea party that only witches would enjoy attending. And during the tea party, we actually did some divination using different things, one of which would be, of course, the tea leaves we had with our tea. It's really simple. It's a very simple form of divination. You don't have to have any kind of skills to do it. All you need is some hot water and a teacup, preferably a white plain interior teacup, with slanted sides, like a china cup would be. You'll see. I'll show you in my. I have a little film of my explanation of how I do it. This is, of course, how I do it, but you need that, and you need loose leaf tea. It has to be loose leaf. If you have a tea bag, you might be tempted to tear open the tea bag and use the leaves. They're a little too fine. They're just, because they're in the way they're meant to be in the bag itself. They're not the same size as would be in loose leaf tea. In Tasgeomancy, after the tea is consumed, we will then leave a little water, swirl it around in the cup, and dump the water out, inverting the cup to dump out the water. And then we're going to look and see the patterns that the tea leaves make. We're looking for actually like little pictures or symbols or numbers or letters, anything like that. And now some people do use certain meanings. They'll particularly people maybe who read Lenormand cards, sometimes use the meanings of Lenormand symbols in the Lenormand deck um, in their tea reading. But it can be anything. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to have an assigned meaning. Just give a thought of what it is you think you're looking for. Write it down. Journal about it. Write it down what you think you see. And then include all the images you think you see. Maybe to see if any images are close, any um, patterns are close to each other or are apart from each other or in the bottom, different places, and try to imagine what that might be, what your interpretation might be. Just use your imagination. But if you write it down, and then later you can look at the symbols that you have recorded and see if you get any kind of an idea of what kind of divination you have accomplished using your tea leaves. So I recommend, if you don't have any loose leaf tea, buy some because you can always use it. You can always use it and drink it. and drink it. But it's really very fun to do. Okay, so I wanted to show you a little bit about that. The idea is you want to leave enough tea leaves in there that you want to read, but they have to be able to move freely in the cup. You want to swirl it before you turn them out. And if you leave too much liquid in there, all the leaves are going to wash out. So it's a fine line. I find just drinking as absolute much as I can, as slowly as I can, with still a little bit of moisture in the bottom is really all you need. The tea leaves that are left in the cup are then examined, and you want to take your time and look for shapes. It's just like you're looking at pictures in clouds, if you've ever done that when you were younger, laying on the grass looking up at the clouds. What do you see? What do you see? What kind of shapes do you see in the tea leaves? And it takes a little bit of time. You have to use your imagination, use your intuition. Do you see a car? Do you see an airplane? Do you see a flower? Maybe a bat? You think my husband said you saw a witch on a broom, or you saw a boot? Anyway, you look at the shapes and you say, does this remind me of anything about my loved one? Does it remind me about experience we had or anything that meant something special to them or whatever? Maybe a trip that you shared or working in the garden together, or maybe a pet they had or a favorite book that they like to read. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to tell right away. So write them down, get a journal or just a piece of paper and list the shapes. List the shapes that you see. Maybe take a picture of your design, of the design in the cup. But then later journal about those shapes, journal about them, and just say what that could possibly mean. Maybe it's a way of saying that they miss you. It might be a message that they want to get to you, maybe a warning. You don't know. Whatever it is, write down the shapes. And if you see something that odd that wouldn't have anything to do with your loved one, like maybe you see a dragon or you see a spider and you think there's nothing about that, look on the internet for the correspondences that might go with those things. And you'll get a clue for maybe what the message is about. I really cannot go any further in this video without addressing one issue, and that is, we might be thinking of what came first, the chicken or the egg, but my question is, are we going to be celebrating Samhain or are we going to be celebrating Halloween as witches? And really basically the question that I'm asking is, were the modern customs that we have for secular Halloween based on the ancient ritual of Samhain, or is Samhain what we celebrate today as witches? Was that based on the customs of Halloween? Now, the reason we have to ask that is the very term Halloween refers to Hallows Eve, and Hallows is a religious term. It's a Christian term. So in our minds, we might think, well, that's a Christian term, so it probably comes after what we consider to be the ancient time of the ancient Celts and things. But I want to say that some of the Hallows practices date back thousands of years. there's always going to be debate because even some neo-pagans, if you want to call them, don't even celebrate Samhain on the same day as Halloween. They celebrate it according to where it falls astronomically between the midpoint of the equinox and winter solstice, midway. So that is usually around the, I don't know, the 6th of November, something like that. That's in the northern hemisphere, at least. Is that important? Well, it's fine. It's fine. You can separate the two, but I think in order for us to really understand and get the full benefit, we want to understand the traditions of both and where they originated from. I think that's what makes more sense to me. I don't know if it does to you, but it seems to make more sense to me. Okay. For instance, we talk about putting disguises. Our modern Halloween is all about trick-or-treating, right? Dressing up in costumes and going from door to door to collect treats. Well, in 16th century Scotland, it was first recorded, and later in the rest of Britain, other parts of Britain, it became common for people to put on some kind of a costume or some kind of disguise, or some kind of a disguise, and go around to neighboring homes, and usually like maybe sing some songs or recite some verses in exchange for treats. And it's believed by many people that was evolved. The idea of that kind of early trick or treating, if you would say, was evolved from another tradition where people actually would impersonate the spirits of the dead and in order to receive offerings on their behalf. Okay, so, and then on top of that, there were also incidences where some, especially young men, would blacken their faces or wear masks, but usually they would just blacken their face with maybe ash from the fire, and they would disguise themselves and they would threaten to do mischief. They would go around to their neighboring homes and threaten to do mischief if they were not given some kind of a treat. Okay, so all of that comes into play in some of our modern practices of Halloween. Okay, now I want to say these are based on theories. They're not based on any fact that I know of. I mean, we don't have actual reports or physical evidence too much of a lot of these things, but I want to trust some of the people that did the research. I like to do that. It comes up often enough that it's probably not too far-fetched. And also, but it is relevant to what we want to say today. So I think it's very possible for us to have a basis as witches to celebrate both Halloween and Samhain. So the question that we're going to raise, should witches celebrate the tradition of Samhain or the tradition of Halloween? And my answer would have to be both. Both. Do both. Because we love this time of the year. It is our favorite time of the year for many of us. Okay. Now, I have some... It's one of some fun things to do. We talk about, this video deals mostly with Samhain, but if you want to talk about Halloween, I do have a playlist that I think I probably filmed during 2020 when we were locked up in our homes during the pandemic, and I have a lot of interesting things to do in there, a lot of interesting fun crafts to do, so I will give you a link to that playlist and have at it. 31 days of Halloween. You can't beat that, right? Spiritually, Samhain is known as one of the times when the veil between the worlds is at its thinnest. Beltane is the other time when the veil is thin, but for my practice, the thinning veil at Beltane facilitates communication with the fairy world. The thinning veil at Samhain marks an opportune moment when communication with ancestors, spirit guides, and the unseen realms flows more freely. The veil is a symbolic, energetic boundary between the physical world and the spiritual realm. It separates the everyday experiences of the living from the domain of ancestors, spirits, and other unseen presences. Throughout most of the year, this boundary is thought to remain steady, keeping the two worlds distinct. At Samhain, the barrier softens. The result is a period of heightened spiritual awareness and potential contact with those who came before us. This thinning veil between the worlds at Samhain is a prime time for divination, communicating with the spirits, as many ways as you can. People do different things. People hold dumb suppers where they actually set a place at the table for the ancestors to join them. Of course, where I live, ofrendas, Mexican ofrendas, the altars that they put out for the dead are very elaborate with their favorite foods and things, and a lot of us have even developed some of those practices. Maybe we don't have true ofrendas, but we do sometimes include on our ancestor altars items that belong to our ancestors. Like I have used things from mine, things, small things that they have touched. Maybe it's jewelry, maybe it's, I one time used my grandmother's knitting needles on my altar. The medals, I have an ancestor who fought and during the Civil War, and his medals were sometimes put on the altar, different things like that all the time. So that's very fun. It's very good to do. Anybody can do it, but of course you can see just simple photographs in a little light is really all that you need. You don't need to have anything elaborate. But as far as that thinning veil goes, you can understand when that veil is thin why it's such a good time to communicate. And there's a lot of ways you can do that that I just talked about. But one of my favorite ways, and you've seen me do this before, and I'm going to link to the video, because if you haven't watched it, I want you to watch this, is I, of course, have the Santa Muerte Tarot deck, which I use every Samhain without fail. I use it other times, not just at Samhain, but always without fail, because it has a couple of different things. First of all, it features, and there is Santa Muerte herself, and you see the skeletal form, the pregnant skeletal form, which we know as the crone, with the life of the seed of the god in her belly. They're just beautifully illustrated cards. I just love these so much, I can't even tell you how much. The vases on them are so, and of course they don't have vases, they're skeletons, but they're just so expressive, and they're so, they evoke so much emotion. So much emotion in the cards. So they're good to have as a tarot deck. But you're going to say, well, I'm not very good at tarot. I'm just pretty beginner tarot, so I might not be real good at communicating with the spirits. Well, first of all, there is in the little book that comes with the deck, each of the cards holds a message from the advice of the dead, some advice given from the dead to go to each card, which, is helpful or not. But I like a whole different way. I like to do it a whole different way. And I go by the illustrations on the deck. I ask questions, and you'll see on the video if you go watch it, that I look at the illustrations and see if somebody was trying to communicate me from the other side and didn't read tarot, I'm going on that premise, what images would they be showing me? Look at the Two of Cups. The Two of Cups, this Two of Cups card. Isn't that so tender, so beautiful? I love it so much. But if a spirit from the other side was trying to communicate me with using picture form, what symbols would they pick out to use? And that's kind of the premise of of using the tarot to communicate anyway. When we communicate with the energies around us, the cards are coming up. The cards are coming up, whether they have a picture or not. But you can't do this exercise within a deck that does not have an illustrated minors. You have to have pictures, actual pictures on each card. So, but any card will do. Your favorite card deck will do. So look that up. I'd love to see you try that exercise. And this is a really good time, if you have witches' runes, to use the witch's rune to help clarify. And that's one of the reasons that I said I love this eye, because one of the things I want to say is when that veil is so thin at this time of the year, many people will find their intuition feels a little bit sharper, or they start to notice things that they didn't notice before. I've had people tell me that all the time, like, oh my goodness, all of a sudden I have this yellow bird coming to my bird feeder all the time, and I don't know, I've never seen a bird like that before. What is that? Okay, you're starting to notice something. Look that up. Look that up, the correspondence for bird, or a yellow bird particularly, or the color yellow, or something having to do with that, and see what the correspondence is for that, the magical correspondence, the spiritual correspondence, right? Maybe that is in a message form. Okay. The thinning veil and the atmosphere around us at this time of the year are being charged with that otherworld energy that we talk about when we're reading tarot. How I feel the energy of the whatever the cards, the spirits are trying to tell me through the cards. Okay, this way it is messages maybe coming, the energies coming from those beyond, and it could represent the person themselves, or somebody that is sending a message on their behalf, or also an opportunity for us to send messages back. So I have some little more detail of that in that video, so please check it out if you're interested. That's a very, very good exercise to do. Okay. You might also find at this time that not just the veil between you and the other world is thinning, but also your own inner veil, if we want to call it, is also lifting a little bit, making your subconscious a little more in your conscious, if that makes sense. Or this is a good idea, a good time for shadow work, because it makes your shadow side a little more accessible. That shadow side is the part of us that we choose to ignore a lot of the times, or we hide. We try to hide it from people, or from ourselves even. This is a good time to really get in touch with that side. That's why shadow work starts at this time of the year, and it's so really popular at this time. Okay, so those are some things to ponder. Two things that you're really going to ponder when you are thinking about celebrating Samhain or Halloween this year, whichever one you do. Okay, I might have been a little later than I meant to coming to this party, but we still do have a few weeks before Samhain actually arrives. You have plenty of time to plan a little bit of your own celebration. If you find yourself celebrating the same way all the time, just putting up the same old decorations, or putting out the same old candy bars for trick-or-treaters, or whatever it is you do, I urge you to try something new this year. Try to extend yourself a little bit. If you are new to divination, especially communication with the ancestors, I urge you to try that. Check out the video and see how that goes. Or just try a whole new divination method. If you've only ever used maybe tarot cards or runes, you never have tried reading tea leaves, this would be a good time to try that out. That's a real fun thing to do. Get some friends together and try it out. Have a little tea party of your own. I just want to say, though, this is so important. Please don't make this less important. If you're going to do any kind of, first of all, ancestor work or any divination of any kind, or even just opening your home to spirits, be sure to put up your protection first. It's not just Uncle Joe that's coming through that door that you're calling to Joe to get some communication. If you have your door open for Uncle Joe from the other world, anybody can tag along with him. So be very careful and put up some protection. I have videos on making jars, burying the jars. I have showed you how to make purses. I hang over my door, special purses or whatever. There's a lot of different things that you can do to protect yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rebecca the Good Wife, and I wish you Samhain blessings.